Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the absolutely wild story of Theranos, a company that promised to change healthcare forever, but ended up as one of the most incredible cautionary tales of our time.
So, let's start with a number, $9 billion. That was the peak valuation of Theranos. It was the ultimate Silicon Valley unicorn, a company that had everyone, investors, politicians, you name it, absolutely captivated.
So how on earth does a $9 billion company, led by this super charismatic founder, just fall to zero? That's the big question, right? And to really get it, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to the incredible promise that started this whole thing.
All right, let's get into it. It all started with this revolutionary promise. So, picture this. It's 2003. A 19-year-old Stanford dropout, Elizabeth Holmes, starts a company. And her mission? It was simple, sure, but it was also just incredibly ambitious.
The core idea was honestly brilliant. Theranos claimed they'd figured out how to run all these complex blood tests using just a tiny pinprick of blood from your finger, all done on a small automated machine. I mean, imagine that. No more huge needles, no more waiting for days. You could just pop into your local pharmacy and get it done.
And we're not talking about some small improvement here. The promise was literally hundreds of tests from a single drop of blood. This was pitched as a complete reinvention of diagnostic medicine, and you can bet Silicon Valley was paying attention. This single idea is what lit the fuse.
And when you have an idea that big, well, the money and the influence, they follow. Fast.
I mean, just look at this trajectory. In 2004, they raised over $6 million at a $30 million valuation. Pretty good, right? By 2010, boom, they hit $1 billion valuation. They're officially a unicorn. And then, just 4 years later, they're raising over $400 million at a peak valuation of $9 billion. The growth was just insane, and everyone wanted a piece of it.
And to make it all seem legit, Holmes put together this all-star board. We're talking former secretaries of state like George Shultz and Henry Kissinger, a former secretary of defense, a famous general. The key thing here is, these weren't scientists or doctors. They were powerful, connected people who gave Theranos this incredible air of credibility.
And the momentum just kept building. They announced these huge partnerships with giants like Walgreens and Safeway. This was the real deal. They were planning to put their tech right into stores where you and I shop, making it available to millions of people.
And all of this led to this. $4.5 billion. That was Elizabeth Holmes' personal net worth in 2014. It made her, on paper, the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. The story, it seemed, was perfect.
But you know how these stories go. Beneath that perfect glossy surface, some people were starting to notice some cracks. Experts, insiders, they were starting to ask some very tough questions. And here's one of the first major red flags from the scientific community. Professor John Ioannidis pointed out that Theranos had never published any peer-reviewed research. Now, that just means they never let other independent scientists look at their data to see if it was legit. For a company making these kinds of revolutionary medical claims, that's a huge, huge problem. Everything was a secret. And then, this, October 2015, a reporter named John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal drops an absolute bombshell of a report. He had sources inside the company, whistleblowers, and this article, well, it changed everything. This was the moment the whole narrative started to just completely unravel.
So, what did the report actually say? It was pretty devastating. It basically alleged that the magic Edison machines they were always talking about didn't really work. Theranos claimed these little boxes were running all the tests, but the reality, they were secretly running most of the tests on regular, old machines they bought from other companies. And even when they did use their own machines, the results were often totally wrong. So once that story was out, the whole house of cards just started to fall apart. And it didn't just wobble, it collapsed fast. Okay, look at how quickly this all went down. In January 2016, federal regulators find their lab as an immediate jeopardy to patient health. That's serious. By June, Walgreens is out. They terminate the partnership completely. A month later, Holmes herself gets banned from running a lab for 2 years. And this is a big one. They have to void 2 whole years of test results from their Edison device. Just poof, gone. By September 2018, the company is officially dissolved. Game over.
So let's go back to this number for a second. $4.5 billion, her net worth at the peak.
And then, just 2 years later, Forbes updated their estimate to 0. A big fat zero. Because her fortune was all tied up in company stock, which was now completely worthless. It just vanished.
All right, so the company's dead, the money's gone, but the story isn't over. The final act of this whole drama would take place in a federal courtroom.
So, in 2018, Elizabeth Holmes and the company's former president, Sunny Balwani, were indicted. The charges were serious: wire fraud and conspiracy. Prosecutors basically said they ran this elaborate, years-long fraud, lying to everyone: investors, doctors, and of course, patients.
And after a couple of very public trials, they were both found guilty. Holmes was convicted on 4 counts of fraud and conspiracy and got sentenced to more than 11 years in prison. Sunny Balwani? He was found guilty on all 12 counts and got nearly 13 years. So real consequences.
And this is what's left. The company that was supposed to revolutionize healthcare is now just a Wikipedia page. Its story isn't a medical breakthrough, it's a cautionary tale, one of the biggest implosions Silicon Valley has ever seen.
So what do we take away from all this? I think it really leaves us with a huge question. What's the difference between faking it till you make it and just straight-up fraud? Where is that line? It's a question that goes way beyond Silicon Valley, and it makes you wonder how we can all get better at telling the difference between a truly great idea and just a really, really good story.